Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into something even more unsettling than your aunt's Facebook posts at 2 a.m. What fun looked like in 1950s America. Not the postcard version with perfect smiles and milkshakes. I mean the real, actual 1950s, where every lawn is suspiciously green, every dad looks like he was manufactured in a factory, and the entire country is quietly vibrating with the fear of communism and undercooked meatloaf. So before you get comfortable, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy this. No pressure. I'm not the government. And drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Somehow, it's always midnight somewhere, and someone is always listening while pretending they're just resting their eyes. Now dim the lights. Turn on a fan for that soft background hum, get cozy, and maybe tuck your feet under the blanket, because tonight, the true horror isn't rats, it's social expectations. Let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered what it felt like to live in a time where fun required approval? Where your neighbors would watch you mow your lawn like it was a courtroom trial? Where the television told you what happiness looked like, and you nodded like, yes, I do want to buy a refrigerator the size of a Buick. What did people do for entertainment before the internet, and more importantly, before people could publicly admit they hated their relatives? How did you flirt in a world where showing ankle was basically a felony? What happened when you laughed too loudly at a party and someone assumed you were either drunk or possibly a communist? What was it like to be a teenager trying to rebel, but the most dangerous thing you could do was buy a leather jacket and look vaguely moist? Could you survive a suburban barbecue where every man insists he knows how to grill, but nobody owns a thermometer? Could you handle family fun night when the family is deeply unhappy and fun is mandatory? And now congratulations. You've just woken up in 1954. You're wearing pajamas that somehow have buttons and a collar. The air smells like bacon, Aquanet, and quiet repression, and somewhere in the distance, a neighbor is watering their lawn with the intensity of a man disposing of evidence. Welcome to fun, and yes, it's going to get weird. You open your eyes in a world where the morning sun feels judgmental. Your curtains are floral, your bedspread is tucked with military precision, and the first thing you hear isn't birds. It's the distant mechanical hum of someone mowing their lawn at 7:02 a.m. sharp. In the 1950s, your grass isn't just grass. It's your reputation. If your lawn is patchy, people don't think you're busy, they think you're morally unstable. You lie there for a moment, blinking slowly, and you realize something horrifying. It's quiet, not peaceful quiet, not relaxing quiet. This is the kind of quiet where you can hear someone across the street opening their garage door with purpose. The kind of quiet where a single loud sneeze could trigger a neighborhood meeting. You sit up and your pajamas have buttons. That's the first red flag. Pajamas in this era aren't just clothes you sleep in. They're a uniform that says, I'm a normal American who definitely isn't hiding anything. You shuffle toward the window, and your feet sink into carpet so thick it feels like your house is wearing a sweater. You pull back the curtain just slightly because you don't want to be seen looking. Looking too hard could be interpreted as suspicion. And suspicion is contagious out here. Outside, the neighborhood is already alive, not with joy, with routine. A man 2 houses down is watering his lawn like he's trying to erase a crime scene. Another dad is in a crisp white undershirt, standing at the end of his driveway, staring into the distance like a soldier awaiting orders. A woman in curlers is carrying a tray of something that smells like cinnamon and quiet pressure. Everything is too tidy. The houses all look like they were stamped out of a single mold. The lawns are trimmed like they've been personally inspected by the government. The air smells like dew, fresh-cut grass, and mild anxiety. You step outside and immediately feel it, that invisible suburban spotlight. It's like the whole street turns slightly toward you, even though nobody is openly staring. Everyone is busy. Everyone is casually doing something. But the truth is, they're also watching. Quietly. Politely. Like hawks in cardigans, you take one deep breath, and the air is so clean it feels suspicious. You half expect it to come with a warning label, and then it hits you. You are not just waking up, you're auditioning. The 1950s suburban morning isn't something you experience. It's something you perform. You're expected to emerge from your home looking rested, respectable, and emotionally stable. Like someone who does not cry in grocery store parking lots. Like someone who has never once eaten dinner standing over the sink. Because here, the goal isn't happiness. It's appearing happy. You walk out onto your lawn and instantly notice the stakes. The grass is green, but not green enough. There's one slightly brown patch near the edge. That's not just a dry area. That's a scandal. That brown patch is basically the suburban version of showing up to work with spinach in your teeth, except it lasts all season and your neighbors will quietly bring it up at Christmas. You glance at the driveway. There's a car. Long, shiny, and shaped like an aluminum whale. It's so polished you can see your own face in it. Your face looks like a person who does not know how to properly host a dinner party. That's dangerous. Across the street, someone's screen door creaks open. A neighbor steps out. He smiles at you with the precision of a trained professional. The smile is wide, friendly, and somehow faintly threatening. Like, "Hello, great to see you. I have already noticed 3 things wrong with your home." You smile back automatically because that's what you do in this era. You don't smile because you're happy. You smile because you want to survive. The neighbor gives a cheerful little wave and calls out, "Mornin'," and you reply, "Mornin'," but what you mean is, "Please don't look at my lawn too closely. Please don't notice my posture. Please don't ask me what my husband does for work, because I have no idea who I even am yet." Your stomach growls. Breakfast is coming. And breakfast in the 1950s is not a small thing. Breakfast is an event. Breakfast is where you prove that your household is functional and your children are not feral. But before you even get to the kitchen, you hear it again. The mower, closer now. The sound isn't aggressive. It's worse than aggressive. It's proud. It says, "Someone is already winning today." And you, standing there in your buttoned pajamas, looking at your slightly suspicious brown patch of grass, realize you've been awake for 3 minutes and you're already behind. Welcome to the land of perfect lawns. Try not to look emotionally complicated. The kitchen smells like butter, bacon, and the faint chemical whisper of processed cereal. Breakfast isn't just a meal. It's a performance. The coffee is strong, the toast is perfect, and there's a silent competition happening between neighbors over who owns the newest appliance. It's a time when healthy means adding a banana to your sugar mountain and calling it balance. You stand in the kitchen for a moment, blinking at the brightness of it all. The counters are spotless. The linoleum floor is shiny enough to reflect your regrets. And the refrigerator is enormous. Not like modern fridges where you store kale you'll never eat. This thing looks like it could store a whole other refrigerator. It hums quietly, confidently, like a proud domestic animal. Like it knows it's the centerpiece of this entire home, and right away, you notice something strange about breakfast in the 1950s. It's not casual. There's no grabbing a granola bar and sprinting out the door with one shoe on. There's no, "I'll just have water." Saying you'll just have water in 1954 is like announcing you've joined a monastery. People will stare, they will whisper, they will assume you've given up on life. Breakfast here is structured, formal, even slightly ceremonial. You hear sizzling, bacon. Of course it's bacon. Bacon is practically a national anthem at this point. Eggs are being scrambled with the confidence of a man who has never had his cholesterol checked. Toast pops up like a cheerful little Jack in the Box, perfectly golden, like it was toasted by an angel who majored in domestic science. And then you see it, the cereal. Not the sad, boring cereal of today that tries to convince you it's high fiber while tasting like cardboard dust. No, this is 1950s cereal. It's bright, colourful, and sugar-coated in a way that feels legally questionable. Each box looks like it was designed by someone trying to sell joy or hide a crime. You pick up a box, and the mascot is smiling way too hard. He's looking at you like, "Go ahead, pour me into a bowl. I dare you." The tagline on the box promises you energy, strength, and popularity. Not in a metaphorical way, in a very direct way. Like eating this cereal will make your neighbors approve of your life choices. You pour yourself a bowl and the pieces clatter into the dish like tiny sweet pebbles. Then you add milk, real milk, full fat, unapologetic. Not a hint of almond in sight. This milk has been through things. It doesn't care about your feelings. It's here to build bones and enforce tradition. You take a bite, it's aggressive. The cereal is sweet enough to make your eyelids twitch. It tastes like pure childhood and mild dental catastrophe. And yet, everyone in this era is convinced this is perfectly normal, because in the 1950s, breakfast is basically a chemistry experiment sponsored by Optimism, and then the coffee arrives, thick, black, and bitter. It's not your delicate oat milk vanilla latte. It's coffee that tastes like a man named Frank yelling at a factory whistle. It comes in a mug that could double as a soup bowl. And you drink it because that's what adults do. Adults drink coffee. Adults survive. Adults pretend they don't want to crawl back into bed and hide from responsibility. As you sip, you hear the clink of dishes. Someone is setting the table with care. Not because they love the table, but because breakfast is a demonstration of stability. In this world, the kitchen table is a stage. If you're a mother, you're expected to look fresh, cheerful, and mysteriously unbothered, even though you've probably been awake since 5 a.m., making sure everyone's hair is combed and nobody is emotionally spiraling. If you're a father, you're expected to sit there in your undershirt, reading the newspaper, acting like you're preparing for the day's great battle, which is probably just going to the office and being called champ by a man who smells like cigarettes. And if you're a kid, you're expected to eat whatever appears in front of you with gratitude. Doesn't matter if it's oatmeal. Doesn't matter if it's eggs. Doesn't matter if it's something called a breakfast loaf. You eat it because complaining means you're ungrateful, and being ungrateful is dangerously close to being un-American. You glance at the countertop and see a bowl of fruit, a banana, maybe an orange. This is the official health section of breakfast. It exists purely so everyone can say, "See, we're balanced." Because the rest of breakfast is basically butter, sugar, bacon, grease, and hope. And right as you think you've understood the vibe, you notice the appliances. There's a toaster with chrome sides that gleam like a Cadillac. There's a blender that looks like it could blend a shoe. There's a coffee percolator bubbling proudly like it's about to be featured in a magazine. This is not just a kitchen. This is an appliance showroom disguised as a home. And somewhere out there, in another perfectly clean kitchen, another neighbor is using a slightly newer toaster, which means they're winning. You finish your cereal, wipe your mouth politely, and sit back with the quiet realization that breakfast in the 1950s isn't meant to nourish you. It's meant to prove you belong. And if you don't, well, you can always pretend you're full and quietly eat cookies in the pantry later like a normal, emotionally repressed American. You sit down with the newspaper, expecting crossword puzzles and weather updates. Instead, you get headlines about nuclear tension, communism, and the looming feeling that the world could end before lunch. But don't worry, right next to the article about Cold War paranoia, is a cheerful ad for a new toaster. Nothing calms the nerves like crispy bread while civilization trembles. The paper crinkles in your hands as you unfold it, and immediately you're greeted by bold, all-caps headlines. Soviets test. New bomb screams from the front page, right above a black and white photo of men in suits looking very serious about something nobody quite understands. You try to focus on the weather, but even that feels ominous, partly cloudy, chance of fallout. You take a sip of coffee and glance at the cartoons, desperate for something light. But even the comic strips seem tense. Dennis the Menace is throwing a baseball. And for all you know, it's about to trigger an international incident. Somewhere, a political cartoonist is drawing a bear and an eagle locked in a wrestling match, and you find yourself quietly rooting for the eagle, mostly out of habit. There's a thin layer of anxiety over everything, as if the ink itself is a little jumpy. Every other article is about the Red Scare or the latest duck and cover drill at the local school. You remember yesterday's drill? Everyone scrambling under their desks, as if the right angle of plywood will save you from atomic vaporization. It's oddly comforting. Nothing says normal like preparing for global annihilation between math and lunch. But the real magic is in the advertising. You look just to the right of a story about espionage and see an ad for a toaster that never burns toast, guaranteed. There's a smiling woman in a spotless apron, holding up a slice of bread like it's the solution to world peace. Her hair is perfect. Her kitchen is perfect. Her smile says, "If you just buy this, everything will be fine." And honestly, for a split second, you believe her. Next comes the classifieds, where local worries battle for attention. There's a lost cat named Mr. Whiskers, last seen fleeing the sound of a vacuum cleaner, and someone selling a gently used baby stroller, only rolled downhill twice. These small, ordinary dramas are comforting. A reminder that, even while the world teeters on the brink, people still need to sell typewriters and find their missing pets. Your favorite part is the crossword, even if every clue feels suspiciously hard. 4 letters. Synonym for normalcy. You write safe in pencil, but the real answer is probably illusion. The Sudoku hasn't been invented yet, which is probably for the best. Nobody needs more problems to solve at breakfast. The sports section offers a strange reprieve. Baseball scores, local bowling tournaments, and photos of teenagers awkwardly shaking hands after a victory. Even here, the tone is both triumphant and deeply concerned, like the fate of Western civilization hangs in the balance of a high school basketball game. You reach the editorials, and things take a philosophical turn. One writer is lamenting the decline of manners. Another is railing against new music that corrupts the youth. Someone pens a heartfelt letter about the importance of owning a good lawnmower, and suddenly you feel judged all over again. Apparently, even your grass is political. As you fold the paper, you realize the strangest thing of all. You're supposed to feel comforted by all this. The daily newspaper is both an instruction manual for surviving the apocalypse and a catalogue of the things you're supposed to buy before it happens. You take another sip of coffee and stare out the window. The sun is rising. The neighbor is still watering his lawn. And somewhere in the distance, a car backfires with enough force to set off every Cold War alarm bell in your head. But at least your toast is perfect. And for one shining moment, you let yourself believe that if you just keep reading, keep buying, and keep smiling, maybe the world will hold together, at least until tomorrow's headlines. You step into your outfit, and it feels like you're being styled by a smiling, invisible narrator. The clothes are crisp, fitted, and slightly uncomfortable, because comfort is suspicious. Men look like they're about to sell life insurance. Women look like they're about to host a dinner party while quietly planning their escape. Everyone is dressed like they're expecting a surprise visit from the president, or worse, their mother-in-law. You pause in front of the closet, and it's a riot of starched collars, pleated skirts, and colors with names like Eisenhower blue and cherry pie red. Every single item is ironed within an inch of its life. The hangers are all facing the same way, because in the 1950s, even your closet has a sense of order and a bit of anxiety. You run your fingers across the fabrics. Everything feels a little too stiff, a little too formal. You remember that wearing a t-shirt in public, unless it's under another shirt, basically qualifies as a cry for help. Comfort is for the weak. The closest anyone gets to athleisure is a pair of slacks with just a hint of stretch, worn only for vigorous activities like walking briskly to the mailbox. For men, the uniform is simple, but not easy. Pressed trousers, polished shoes, a button-down shirt. And, if you're feeling especially wild, a tie with an aggressively geometric pattern. Every dad in the neighborhood looks like they're about to star in a toothpaste commercial. You catch your reflection in the mirror and realize you look like a man who's about to lecture someone about mortgage rates. If you're a woman, the dress code comes with even more steps. Step 1, girdle. Step 2, slip. Step 3, dress. But only one that says, I bake, I host, and I definitely do not harbor dreams of escaping to Paris. Accessories are non-negotiable. Pearls, a string of perfectly curled hair, and a hint of red lipstick. Even if you're just watering the garden, you may wonder, why all this fuss? Because in the 1950s, your clothing is your social insurance policy. Step outside looking wrinkled or slightly bohemian, and the neighbors will talk. Not loudly, not directly, just enough so you'll feel a sudden urge to iron your socks. And it's not just the adults. Even children look like miniature grown-ups, pressed shorts, shined Mary Janes, dresses that somehow resist all known forms of dirt. Somewhere, a little boy is being forced to part his hair so severely he looks like a tiny banker. Every morning, the act of getting dressed is like preparing for battle. You mentally review the day's schedule, work, errands, possibly a visit to the Joneses, and choose your armor accordingly. Nothing too flashy, nothing too New York. Just enough style to suggest you have your life together. But not so much that anyone suspects you're hiding something, like, say, a personality. There's a unique stress to all of it. An unspoken understanding that at any moment, a neighbor could drop by, a boss could call an unexpected meeting, or the entire bridge club could materialize in your living room. You must be ready. You must always look like you could be photographed for the cover of Modern Homemaker or Efficient Dad Quarterly. As you step outside, the world feels like a runway designed by committee. Everyone nods politely, taking mental notes on hemlines and pocket squares. The air is thick with hairspray, perfume, and a faint whiff of competitive spirit. But the irony is, despite all this effort, nobody ever admits that it's hard. Nobody confesses that their feet hurt from those shiny shoes, or that their waist is gasping for freedom from that belt. Everyone pretends it's all effortless, natural, and exactly how they dreamed life would be. You take a deep breath and smile at the mailman, who is wearing a hat with such sharp creases you could use it to slice bread. He tips it at you, like you've both agreed to uphold the illusion together. Dressing in the 1950s isn't just about looking good. It's about passing. Passing for respectable. Passing for content. Passing for normal, in a world where normal is the highest achievement and the heaviest disguise. So you straighten your collar, smooth your skirt, and step out into the morning sun, hoping nobody can tell that underneath it all you'd rather be in sweatpants. You take one step outside and immediately feel eyes on you. Not evil eyes, just curious, polite, calculating eyes. In the 1950s, your neighbors aren't just neighbors. They're an unofficial committee in charge of your social standing. They know what time you leave, what time you return, and whether your garbage cans are aligned correctly. Privacy is a myth invented later by people with Wi-Fi passwords. The grass crunches beneath your freshly polished shoes, and you instinctively scan the street. Every window is a potential observation deck. Behind each curtain, a pair of eyes might be cataloguing your every move. Mrs. Carter, with her binoculars, Mr. Ellison pretending to prune his roses while monitoring pedestrian traffic, and the O'Reilly twins playing hopscotch but taking mental notes for the afternoon family debrief. You wave at your next-door neighbor, who's just sweeping his already spotless driveway. He nods, friendly as can be, but you both know he's logging this exact moment. He knows you stepped out precisely at 8:13 a.m., wearing your Wednesday tie on a Thursday. That's going in the records. You walk to the curb to retrieve your morning paper, trying to appear relaxed and totally unconcerned about how you look in direct sunlight. But you can't help noticing how aligned everyone's garbage cans are, forming a perfect line like soldiers in a suburban parade. One can slightly out of formation, and you're at risk of whispers. There's an unspoken contest in this neighborhood. A daily Olympics of compliance. Who returns from work at the most normal hour? Who has the healthiest-looking pet? Who hosts the best barbecues with the most appropriately sized hot dogs? Everything matters. Everything is noticed. The best part? Everyone is polite. Painfully polite. If you accidentally mow your lawn at a slightly odd angle, nobody says a word to your face. Instead, you get passive-aggressive compliments. Your lawn is so creative this year. I never would have thought to try that pattern. Suddenly, you're questioning every life decision since birth. You try to remember the last time you heard a neighbor actually knock on someone's door for a friendly chat. That's not how things work. Instead, communication happens through a complex system of waves, nods, and subtle eyebrow movements. It's a silent language, where a raised brow can mean anything from nice azaleas to you should really repaint your mailbox. Of course, surveillance goes both ways. You find yourself keeping track too. You know exactly when Mr. Taylor puts out his recycling. You know that the miller's porch light stays on until 10:32 p.m., even on weeknights. You pretend you don't care, but there's comfort in knowing you're all in the same anxious boat, rowed with matching oars and regulated by an invisible HOA. The children of the neighborhood are no better. They form their own micro-surveillance squads, reporting back on who has the best after-school snacks or whose mother lets them watch TV before dinner. Secrets don't last long. If you say you're out of sugar for cookies, expect 3 other households to bring it up at church on Sunday. You start to wonder, is anyone actually happy here, or is everyone just busy watching everyone else? Even moments of supposed privacy, like washing your car, trimming your hedges, or hanging laundry, are public events, quietly critiqued from behind Venetian blinds. You see the mailman approaching, and for a split second, you imagine he's the only person truly free in this landscape. But even he is subject to scrutiny. Too many late deliveries, and the neighborhood committee will write a letter, probably on their brand new, perfectly aligned stationery. At the end of the day, you retreat back inside, closing the door softly, pretending it means you have some kind of sanctuary. But deep down, you know the truth. In the 1950s suburb, privacy is for people in spy novels and motels off Route 6060. For everyone else, you live your life on display, performing normalcy like it's the world's longest-running play. You're always being watched, just never quite enough to make it exciting. Only enough to make you wish, just for a second, that you could take your garbage out in your pajamas without ending up as the topic of tomorrow's bridge game. The lawn is your battlefield. Mowing it isn't leisure, it's patriotism. You're out there pushing a mower like it's a sacred ritual, sweating in the sun, making sure every blade of grass is uniform because uneven grass suggests inner chaos. And inner chaos suggests you might not be normal. In this era, the lawn is basically your psychological report card. You step out into the yard and feel the weight of 1,000 invisible judges. The grass is damp with dew, and the sun glints off the chrome trim of your neighbor's mower like it's a warning. Somewhere, 2 houses down, a sprinkler hisses to life, starting its daily performance. A perfect, rhythmic sweep, as if choreographed by a ballet master who also dabbles in espionage. You size up your own patch of earth. Every weed is a character flaw. Every dandelion is a public admission of failure. There's a science to the entire process, but nobody ever wrote it down. You just know it, deep in your bones, passed down by ancestors who never once let a blade of grass get above its station. Out comes the mower. In the 1950s, this is no easy-to-start, self-propelled machine. No, this is a heavy, rumbling beast, powered by equal parts gasoline and shame. You yank the starter cord until your arm burns, pretending it always starts on the first try. It never does. But you smile and wave anyway, because everyone's watching, and nothing says competent adult like pretending you didn't just lose a wrestling match to a lawnmower. The ritual begins. You push, and the mower rattles and roars. The air fills with the scent of fresh-cut grass and faint existential dread. Each pass must overlap by just the right amount. Too little, and you risk unsightly lines. Too much, and you're wasting valuable energy you'll need later for other important suburban activities, like pretending you enjoy small talk and grilling hot dogs with alarming seriousness. Your mind drifts as you work. You wonder if the neighbors are keeping a tally of how often you mow. Is weekly enough? Is twice a week overcompensating? There's no official rulebook, only a persistent fear that you're one mowing session away from social exile. Halfway through, you spot a rogue clump of crabgrass. You pause, kneel, and attack with the precision of a surgeon. Across the street, Mrs. Evans pretends to be pruning her roses but is almost certainly noting your technique. She'll bring it up at Bridge Club later, you just know it. The mower spits and sputters as you finish the final strip. You wipe your brow. But the job's not over. Now comes the edging, the trimming, the raking. You make your way along the sidewalk, careful to avoid leaving clippings on the concrete, because stray grass on public pathways is the moral equivalent of littering in this zip code. The sun beats down. You fantasize about collapsing in the shade with a cold drink. But first, you must survey your work. The result, a uniform, green canvas, freshly striped. Each blade precisely the same height. A living display of your mental stability and community loyalty. You look around and spot your neighbor across the street, nodding in silent approval. You nod back. The universal sign for, yes, I too am a functioning member of society. For a moment you feel proud, you belong. You're not just tending a lawn, you're upholding civilization itself. Just as you're about to retreat indoors, you spot a single defiant weed poking up by the mailbox. You bend down, pluck it, and glance over your shoulder, just in case anyone saw. They probably did. You finally head inside, a little sore, a little sunburned, but with your social standing fully intact. In the 1950s, a good lawn is more than just greenery. It's your declaration of order, your badge of belonging, and the quiet reassurance that, for now, you are exactly as normal as everyone expects you to be. Tomorrow, the grass will grow again, the battle will resume. But tonight, you rest easy, knowing your reputation is safe, at least until the next dandelion. The car isn't just transportation, it's status on wheels. It's long, shiny, and shaped like a chrome boat designed by someone who feared silence. Sliding into the driver's seat feels like entering a different version of yourself, one that belongs on a highway, cruising toward a better life even if you're just going to buy milk. You don't simply drive in the 1950s. You announce yourself. You approach your car in the driveway and feel a little surge of pride. This isn't some bland, utilitarian vehicle. This is a rolling monument to American optimism, complete with tail fins, bench seats wide enough for the entire Little League team, and a dashboard that looks like it was engineered by someone whose main hobby is blinking lights. Even the color is bold: cherry red, aqua blue, sunbeam yellow, shades that make sure nobody misses your grand entrance or exit. Sliding into the driver's seat, you get a whiff of real leather and faint gasoline, the smells of freedom, and just a little bit of carbon monoxide. You run your hands along the steering wheel, which is roughly the size of a family pizza. The radio is built right into the dash, and it only gets 3 stations, but all 3 come with plenty of static and the soothing reassurance that Elvis is shaking up the status quo somewhere out there. In the 1950s, your car isn't just part of your life, it's a full-blown character. Your neighbors know what you drive. They know what time you leave in the morning and when you return, because that's when the rumble of your version 8 shakes their window panes. Your car's clean, of course. In this decade, dust on a fender is a silent cry for help. Every Saturday morning, you join the unspoken ritual. Hose, sponge, wax, and a silent race to see whose car can blind the most pedestrians. For teenagers, the car is even more. It's independence. It's rebellion on 4 wheels. If you're lucky enough to borrow the family sedan, you pile your friends inside and roll slowly past the local diner, windows down, elbows out, pretending not to notice everyone noticing you. The music is up, the future is limitless, and you're suddenly the coolest person in a 100-mile radius. At least until your dad calls you home before curfew. If you're a parent, the car is an extension of your role in the neighborhood. Are you a responsible breadwinner with a sensible sedan? Or are you broadcasting your family's prosperity with the biggest, shiniest station wagon money can buy? Wagons come with faux wood paneling, and the more wood, the better. It says, "We could go camping. We never will, but we could." Even errands become a kind of theater. Need groceries? That's a production. You pile everyone into the car, no seatbelts, just optimism, and cruise to the store, waving at neighbors with the grace of minor royalty. Each stop sign is an opportunity to be seen, admired, or quietly judged. Parking lots are full of people strutting just a little, pretending they don't care who's watching as they open doors that weigh as much as modern microwaves. There's no such thing as a quick getaway, either. These cars take their time. Acceleration is less of a sprint and more of a gentle suggestion. The engine roars as you climb to a modest 35 miles per hour, and you feel like a race car driver until a passing bicycle makes you question your self-worth. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that for a few moments every day, you're behind the wheel of something important. Something loud, proud, and impossible to ignore. The world knows you're out there, and you know the world is watching. You pull back into your driveway, engine purring like a satisfied tiger. The neighbors peek from behind their curtains, taking mental notes for tomorrow's coffee clatch. You step out, close the door with a satisfying clunk, and toss your keys in the air like a person who's going places, even if those places are just the milk aisle and back again. In 1950s America, your car is never just a car. It's your identity. Parked for all to see, polished and ready to rumble. If you're a kid, school is where you learn reading, writing, and how to sit still like your future depends on it. The classroom smells like chalk, dust, and discipline. You practice duck and cover drills like it's just another normal Tuesday activity, Because nothing says education like rehearsing for nuclear disaster between spelling tests. You walk through the front doors with your hair slicked down and your shoes freshly shined, gripping a lunchbox that's somehow both indestructible and impossible to open quietly. The hallway echoes with the sounds of 100 other kids, hushed whispers, shoes squeaking, and the slightly sinister jangle of the principal's keys. On the wall, there's a giant American flag, waving as if to say, "Behave, or else." You find your desk, a sturdy wooden thing, bolted to the floor, with just enough room inside for a pencil box, 3 battered textbooks, and a top-secret stash of bubble gum you'll never dare chew in public. The teacher stands at the front, her hair sculpted to defy wind and reason, armed with a pointer and a gaze that could bore holes through steel. This is not a woman who accepts late homework, daydreaming, or creative spelling. The day's agenda is posted in perfect cursive on the chalkboard. Arithmetic, geography, penmanship, and, as always, obedience. Sitting still is a competitive sport here. If you fidget, you risk being called out. Publicly, gently, but in a way that will haunt your dreams for years. The prize for winning? Getting to pass out the milk cartons at snack time and the deep, deep satisfaction of not being sent to the hallway. Education in the 1950s is less about curiosity and more about conformity. You stand when called, you answer when spoken to. You recite the Pledge of Allegiance with the fervor of someone trying to unlock a secret level in a video game. When you get a gold star on your spelling test, you don't just feel proud, you feel safe. Like you've passed another round of a never-ending audition. Then, of course, come the drills. Fire drills are old news, everyone knows the routine. But the duck and cover drill is where things get surreal. The teacher calmly instructs the class to crouch under their desks, arms covering their heads, as if the desk is a magical force field against atomic doom. You do it, not because you think it'll work, but because it's another test, another chance to prove you can follow instructions to the letter. At recess, you break free for a few precious minutes. The playground is a jungle of steel and hope, teeter-totters that could double as medieval torture devices, merry-go-rounds spun with the force of small hurricanes, and swings that scrape the sky. But even here, the rules persist. Don't run, don't shout, don't even think about climbing the fence or inventing a new game. Playtime is strictly regulated chaos. Lunchtime is a lesson in humility and social navigation. You sit with the same kids every day, swapping stories about the weirdest thing in your lunch sack, mystery meat again, and quietly ranking who has the best dessert. The cafeteria is a sea of noise and milk cartons, punctuated by the stern glare of the lunch monitor, who seems convinced that a single grape thrown in anger could spark a riot. Afternoons are reserved for more learning and, of course, more sitting. You copy math problems from the board, hands aching, mind wandering to the freedom waiting after the final bell. The clock ticks so slowly, you're convinced it's running on a different time zone, one designed to test the patience of children and the nerves of teachers. Finally, the bell rings. You gather your things and march in line, single file, past the principal, still jingling those keys, past the bulletin board of perfect report cards, and out into the sunlight. You survived another day in the Great Obedience Olympics. A little wiser, a little more practiced at the fine art of fitting in. And as you head home, you realize you learned a lot today. Not just math or grammar, but how to pass for normal, how to follow the rules, and most importantly, how to look calm when you're secretly wondering if the desk drill would really save you from a nuclear bomb. Welcome to school in the 1950s. Now go do your homework, and whatever you do, don't slouch. Being a teenager in the 1950s is like living inside a pressure cooker with pomade. You're expected to be polite, respectful, and grateful while your entire body is screaming to do something reckless like listen to rock and roll and think independent thoughts. Your rebellion options are limited, but powerful. Roll up your sleeves, chew gum, or say the word square with venom. The first thing you notice is the hair. It's slicked, combed, and shellacked into gravity-defying shapes, held together by a gallon of Brill cream or Aquanet. Your entire identity can be summed up by the angle of your pompadour or the tightness of your ponytail. Looking cool is an all-day project, a balancing act between fitting in and standing out, just enough to keep life interesting. School is still a daily requirement, but now you're navigating an obstacle course of teachers, deans, and parents who see every small act of independence as a potential crisis. Your locker is a shrine to contraband. Comic books, secret notes, and a forbidden pack of gum ready for quick disposal at the first sign of an authority figure. There's a strict dress code, but everyone knows the real test is how you roll your sleeves, cuff your jeans, and tilt your cap. Social survival is a high-stakes game of alliances and subtle digs. You cluster with your crew at the edge of the cafeteria, trading glances and code words, occasionally launching into a synchronized eye roll when the principal walks by. If you're really daring, you talk back, a softly muttered whatever or an epic sigh, just quiet enough to avoid actual punishment. Music is your lifeline. The moment you hear the first few notes of rock and roll leaking from a radio, your heart rate spikes. Elvis, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, they're more than singers, they're revolutionaries. You turn up the dial just loud enough for your parents to worry, but not loud enough to get grounded. Dancing in the living room feels like both a rebellion and a personal freedom, hips moving just a little more than polite society would ever condone. Dating is a carefully scripted drama. You go steady, which means you exchange class rings or ID bracelets, and suddenly you're officially a couple, bound by the unwritten rules of the high school jungle. Dates are nerve-wracking affairs. The drive, in, the diner, maybe a chaperone dance where the punch is weak and the lights are suspiciously bright. Every glance, every word, every dance move is monitored by a small army of adults who are convinced one slow dance leads directly to moral collapse. Home life is a paradox. You're old enough to want independence, but still living under the roof of parents who survived the Great Depression and expect you to be grateful for every bite of meatloaf. The generational divide is measured in music, clothing, and the correct level of respect for a roast dinner. You're told to dream big, but not too big, question authority, but only if you're certain the authority isn't in the next room. Your friends become your confessional. You gather in basements and backyards, sharing secrets about crushes, teachers, and the possibility of running away to California to surf and join a band. Sometimes you even talk about the big stuff, dreams, fears, the lurking sense that the world could change overnight. And then, just as you're starting to believe you have it all figured out, someone shouts, "Dad's home," and the spell is broken. You snap back into respectful mode, hiding your Rolling Stones magazine inside your geometry book and making sure your shoes are tied. Being a teenager in the 1950s means learning the art of quiet rebellion, how to bend the rules without breaking them, how to roll your eyes without being seen, and how to survive with your soul intact until the world finally realizes that teenagers are people too. Until then, you'll keep dancing, dreaming, and calling everyone square, just loudly enough for your friends to hear, and just quietly enough to keep out of trouble. Music arrives like a scandal. Rock and roll hits the radio, and suddenly adults act like civilization is collapsing because teenagers are moving their hips slightly too much. Your parents treat Elvis like he's an invading army. But to you, the music feels like freedom, like oxygen, like the first time someone told you it was okay to not be a perfect little mannequin. You remember the first time you heard that beat, The one that makes your heart race and your feet start tapping before your brain can catch up. It's fast, it's loud, it's got a backbeat you can't ignore. There's a guitar solo that sounds like someone's taking a wrench to the entire concept of adulthood. And the singer, Elvis, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, sounds like he's having the time of his life and couldn't care less about what the neighbors think. You're not alone. Every teenager you know is suddenly glued to their radios, waiting for the DJ to play that forbidden sound again. Kids huddle around the jukebox at the diner, feeding it nickels and sharing conspiratorial grins. It's a secret language, a rebellion in 3 chords, shaking up every notion of how you're supposed to behave. Meanwhile, the grown-ups are in a full-scale panic. Preachers are giving sermons about the dangers of jungle rhythms. School principals send letters home warning parents that music might lead their children down the road to juvenile delinquency, which is 1950s code for dancing too close to someone with a good haircut. Mothers listen to records backward, convinced there's a hidden message in there. There is. It's relax, Mom. You practice the moves you saw on TV, twisting, jitterbugging, and, if you're really brave, a little hip shake. Your living room becomes a makeshift dance floor, provided you can sneak a few minutes when nobody's watching. But inevitably, your dad walks in and turns down the radio, muttering something about good music and noise. You nod, but as soon as he leaves, the volume goes right back up. At school dances, the real battle begins. The gym is decorated with streamers and paper hearts, but the chaperones are watching like hawks, scanning for any suggestive moves. The records spin, and the room gets electric. Boys try to look cool, girls giggle behind their hands, and everyone is wondering how far they can push the boundaries before Mrs. Jenkins swoops in and separates them with a glare. The irony is, the more adults protest, the more magical the music becomes. It's forbidden fruit, and everyone wants a taste. You hear stories about TV hosts refusing to film Elvis below the waist, about towns banning rock and roll shows for fear the local youth will burst into flames or, worse, form a band. But you know the truth. The music isn't dangerous. It's hope with a beat. It's energy for kids who've spent their whole lives being told to sit down, button up, and behave. It's a way to be heard, even if you don't have the words yet. It's fun, loud, and just a little bit wild. Everything you've been craving since the first time you had to color inside the lines. At night, you lay in bed with your transistor radio tucked under your pillow, the forbidden notes pulsing through the darkness. You think about the future. Your future. Maybe it's bigger than this town. Maybe it's as wild as the music that fills your dreams. In the morning, the adults are still worried. But you? You're ready for another song, another day, another chance to shake things up, because for the first time you're starting to feel like your life is your own, and it has a soundtrack. You pull into the drive-in, and it's instantly clear this isn't just a movie, it's a whole social ecosystem. Teenagers whisper, parents pretend they're not exhausted, popcorn is eaten aggressively, and somewhere nearby, a baby is crying in a car, because apparently that's also entertainment. The screen flickers in the night, like a giant glowing promise. Your life might be boring, but at least the movie has aliens. As you maneuver your car into a carefully chosen spot, you sense the low buzz of anticipation. Cars line up in rows, each angled for maximum screen visibility and minimum mosquito invasion. The evening air is thick with the smell of exhaust, crushed grass, and the unmistakable tang of bug spray. Over the muffled radio speakers, tinny music crackles, a soundtrack to the greatest event of the week. Inside your car, the upholstery sticks to the backs of your legs. There's a subtle power struggle over the best spot to hang the scratchy metal speaker. Dad wins, of course, but only because he claims it's for optimal sound, even though nobody in the family is convinced he knows what that means. In the back seat, siblings squabble for elbow room and prime popcorn access. while you scan the sea of headlights for friends or potential romantic interests. Bonus points if they're both. On the big screen, the previews start. They're always a mix of local advertisements. Visit Bob's Hardware for all your atomic age needs. And coming attractions that involve flying saucers, melodramatic romance, or someone in a gorilla suit. You're only half watching. Half your attention is on the other cars, mapping out the social pecking order based on who's here with whom and who's here with their parents. Tragedy. For teenagers, the drive-in is the closest thing to a private world you're ever going to get. Couples awkwardly hold hands over the sticky vinyl armrest. Friends giggle, dare each other to sneak over to the snack bar, and secretly hope their parents will fall asleep before the second feature. The lucky ones have mastered the art of slouching down in their seats, just low enough to avoid both adult supervision and any chance of actually seeing the movie. Parents, meanwhile, try valiantly to enjoy themselves. They sip lukewarm coffee from a thermos and remind the kids not to spill soda on the seats like last time. Deep down, everyone knows they're here because it's cheaper than hiring a babysitter and easier than admitting they'd rather be home in pajamas. Then there's the snacks. You go all in. Popcorn so salty it could double as driveway de-icer, sodas fizzing with chemical optimism, and maybe a box of mysterious candy that will later require dental intervention. You eat with wild abandon, then spend the next 20 minutes regretting every kernel as your stomach stages a rebellion. Mosquitoes descend like tiny airborne vampires, undeterred by citronella coils or your mother's desperate flailing. The windows fog up, part weather, part anxiety, and you wipe them down with a napkin, smearing butter everywhere, which only seems to attract more bugs. Somewhere, a couple of cars over, there's a slow-motion love story unfolding, a teenage couple nervously sharing a milkshake and pretending not to care who's watching. In another vehicle, a baby's wail cuts through the second act of the movie. And you realize even infants have opinions about the pacing. But the real show is the people. The drive-in is where small-town drama plays out. Whispered rumors, stolen glances, the annual saga of who gets caught sneaking in through the trunk. Someone's headlights flick on at the worst possible moment, turning a pivotal alien abduction into a scene from an impromptu police raid. And just when you think you can't take another minute of scratchy dialogue and mosquito bites, the movie ends. The credits roll. Cars honk, engines roar to life, and the great migration toward the exit begins, a ballet of brake lights and resigned sighs. You drive home with the windows down, hair smelling like popcorn and bug spray, and a sense that even if the movie was forgettable, the night was anything but. In the 1950s, the drive-in isn't just entertainment. It's a rite of passage, a communal escape, and the one place where, for a few hours, your world is as wide and wild as the silver screen. The diner is the cathedral of the 1950s. Neon lights glow, booths squeak. The waitress calls you Hon with a strength that feels both comforting and slightly terrifying. A milkshake arrives so thick it could qualify as concrete. This is where you gather, gossip, flirt, and pretend you don't care what anyone thinks, while caring deeply what everyone thinks. You step inside and are greeted by the hypnotic buzz of a neon open 24 hours sign, casting a gentle pink haze across the chrome-trimmed counter. The floors are a checkerboard of black and white tiles, gleaming despite a million footsteps. There's a jukebox in the corner, pulsing out the latest hits, rock and roll, doo-wop, and the occasional slow song that gives brave souls an excuse to ask for a dance. You slide into a booth, and the cushion lets out a sound like a whoopee cushion for grown-ups. The table is already sticky, a sign of 1,000 spilled sodas and confessions. Your friends pile in beside you, elbows jostling for space. There's an unspoken pecking order. Who sits by the window? Who gets the coveted spot closest to the jukebox? and who gets stuck with the view of the payphone and the bathroom sign. Menus arrive, giant, laminated, and somehow both overwhelming and comforting. Everything is special, even if you know it all tastes roughly the same. The blue plate special is code for whatever's left, but you order it anyway, mostly because you want to fit in. Someone gets a burger, someone else orders fries. And you, like everyone with something to prove, order a milkshake. The waitress, with a hairstyle as sturdy as her attitude, takes your order without writing anything down. She calls you sugar, darling, or, if you're really lucky, sweet pea. She's seen it all. Breakups, makeups, and teenagers trying to look mysterious while eating chili dogs. Soon the milkshake arrives, crowned with a swirl of whipped cream and a cherry so red it could be a cartoon. The straw stands upright, refusing to budge. You take a sip and immediately regret your life choices. This thing could hold up a bridge. You hand it around, everyone tries, and everyone struggles. And by the end, you're bonded in the shared trauma of attempting to drink dessert. This is the place where secrets spill out as easily as ketchup from a glass bottle. Someone's dating someone new. Someone failed a math test. And someone's little brother tried to set the garage on fire, again. The conversation swings wildly from pop stars to homework to existential dread about what you're going to do after graduation. But the diner is also a sanctuary. Under the buzz of the fluorescent lights, everything feels possible and nothing feels urgent. You watch as couples slide in and out, some clinging to each other, some sitting with a foot of space between them and a world of things unsaid. The cool kids laugh too loudly in the corner. But you know they'll cry just as loudly if someone ruins their hairstyle. Even the cooks behind the counter get in on the drama, slinging hash browns with the energy of soap opera villains. Outside, rain taps the windows or summer heat warps the glass. But inside, time slows down. You might have homework to do or chores waiting at home, but for now, the only thing that matters is whether you'll have enough change for one more song on the jukebox. As the night drifts on, you drain the last of your shake and realize you're exactly where you want to be. Lost in the glowing, greasy, gossip-fueled heart of 1950s America. You're not alone. You're not bored, you're just here. And in this moment, surrounded by friends and fries and the thickest milkshake of your life, you feel like maybe, just maybe, everything is going to be okay. Dinner is served at the same time every night, like it's enforced by law. Everyone sits together, everyone smiles, everyone acts like they don't want to scream into the mashed potatoes. Meatloaf appears. Someone compliments it, nobody believes it. But you eat anyway, because the family dinner isn't about food. It's about the illusion that everything is fine. You can set your watch by this meal. The clock strikes 6, and like a suburban alarm, every family in the neighborhood converges at their dinner tables. The smell of overcooked vegetables wafts down the block, mixing with the faint hope that maybe tonight the jello will be edible. Tablecloths are smoothed, napkins are folded, and plates are set with an efficiency that would make a military quartermaster weep with pride. You take your seat and instantly feel the eyes of your parents, siblings, maybe a grandparent or two, all fixed on you. Nobody says grace with more conviction than a family desperate for 30 minutes of harmony. There's a script to this event. Small talk about school, Dad mentioning the weather, Mom reminding everyone to chew with their mouths closed. There's a deep sense of ritual. No elbows on the table, no singing, and definitely no bringing up unpleasantness, which covers everything from bad grades to nuclear Armageddon. The food arrives. Meatloaf, that infamous slab of ground mystery, is sliced and passed around. Spoons dip into mashed potatoes that are somehow both lumpy and watery. There's always a vegetable side, peas that bounce, carrots that glisten with an unsettling layer of margarine, Someone compliments the meal. "This is delicious, dear." It's an act of solidarity, not honesty. Children know the rules. You eat what's on your plate, even if you're convinced the green beans are plotting against you. If you refuse, you'll face the ultimate threat. There are starving children who would be grateful for this. You consider mailing your dinner overseas, but realize that's a logistical nightmare. Conversation moves in carefully orchestrated circles. Everyone avoids controversy, except for that one uncle who always brings up politics. Forks clatter as Dad launches into a story about the office, which is met with polite laughter and the occasional sideways glance that says, "We've heard this one before, Bill." There's a competitive element to the meal, too. Who has the best table manners? Who can keep their napkin clean the longest? Who can dodge the dreaded "so how was school today" question without giving away anything real? Bonus points if you can pass the salt without knocking over the milk. All the while, everyone is acting. You're pretending the casserole isn't terrifying. Mom's pretending she isn't exhausted. Dad's pretending he's not thinking about the game on the radio. The younger siblings are pretending they're not about to launch peas across the room using only a spoon and questionable judgment. Dessert is the reward for survival. Maybe a slice of store-bought pie, or a bowl of the aforementioned Jell-O, shimmering with the artificial optimism of the post-war era. You eat it with the solemnity of a judge and the relief of someone who's just made it through another round. As the meal winds down, the ritual of gratitude kicks in. "Thanks for dinner, Mom." "Thank you, dear." "Can I be excused?" It's as if everyone is reading lines from a play called The Functioning Family. You scrape your chair back and head off to your next appointed chore or homework session, knowing you'll do it all again tomorrow. Because in the 1950s, dinner isn't about gourmet food or deep emotional connection. It's about holding the seams together. It's about projecting the image of togetherness, even when life is fraying at the edges. It's about pretending, if only for a half hour, that the world outside, full of chaos, change, and the rise of rock and roll, can't get through the front door. You finish your meal, push your plate away, and feel the weight lift just a bit. Joy may be mandatory, but at least the mashed potatoes are optional. The television becomes the new hearth, except instead of warmth, it delivers commercials and moral lessons. Families gather around it like it's holy. The TV tells you what happiness looks like: a new vacuum cleaner, a smiling wife, and children who never once ask why. You watch, hypnotized, as your brain slowly accepts that the goal of life is to buy things until you die. After dinner, you hear the gentle click and hum of the set warming up, the most exciting technological sound in the entire house. You and your family gravitate to the living room like moths to a glowing, hypnotic rectangle. The lights are dimmed, the sofa cushions are arranged with military precision, and there's a sense of ceremony as someone, usually Dad, takes possession of the giant, clunky knob. Channel selection is a sacred duty. There are only 3 choices, but each feels like a decision that could change the trajectory of your entire evening, or at least determine whether you see Lucille Ball or a man in a suit lecturing about the future. The picture, of course, is in black and white, flickering gently like it's trying to remember how light works. The sound is tinny, the reception always one thunderstorm away from total chaos. Occasionally you adjust the rabbit ears, holding them at just the right angle for the Ed Sullivan Show to materialize. The room is so quiet you can hear the static humming in your bones. Everyone sits together, eyes forward, posture oddly perfect. It's family bonding, but nobody speaks. Conversation would be sacrilege. Laughter, if it erupts, is immediate and shared, an involuntary confession of togetherness. The only other sound is the gentle clink of an ice cube in a highball glass and the squeak of sneakers on linoleum as someone sneaks to the kitchen for snacks during a commercial break. Commercials themselves are a new kind of entertainment. They interrupt every show with relentless optimism. Shiny-haired children selling cereal, women gleeful about floor wax, men bragging about car horsepower or razor blades. Each ad is a tiny sermon, letting you know that true joy and social acceptance are just one purchase away. The shows themselves are part of the miracle. You watch sitcom families that never fight, mothers who never lose their temper, and children whose worst crime is tracking mud across the floor. News programs show the world outside. Serious men with serious hair talking about distant wars or national pride. Game shows fill your head with jingles and impossible trivia. Everything feels scripted, polished, and comforting in its predictability. TV is the new campfire, but instead of telling your own stories, you watch someone else's. The silence in the room is thick. Nobody dares break the spell. The world outside could be going up in flames. But as long as the television is on, you're safe in a bubble of manufactured joy. The real miracle of television, though, is how it drowns out everything else. The awkward silences, the uncomfortable conversations, the creeping sense that life is hard and complicated. All of it is swept away in a flood of canned laughter and carefully rehearsed moments. When a show ends, you feel a strange sense of loss, like you've been kicked out of someone else's perfect life. When the set finally goes dark, there's a pause, a collective exhale, as if everyone is recalibrating to real life. You head to bed, eyes fuzzy, ears ringing with commercial jingles and moral lessons. Tomorrow you'll do it all again, because in the 1950s, happiness isn't just a feeling. It's a program, scheduled nightly, just after dinner. And in the quiet that follows, you realize silence is gone, replaced by the eternal glow of possibility, purchase, and perfectly arranged living rooms. The ads are cheerful, but there's something intense about them. Toothpaste isn't just toothpaste, it's your key to social survival. Deodorant isn't hygiene, it's your shield against public humiliation. Every product promises acceptance. Every product warns you. Without it, you will be rejected and possibly arrested for smelling slightly human. You sit in front of the TV, stuffed with meatloaf, only to be ambushed by a commercial break. Suddenly, the smiling faces on the screen are leaning in, just a little too close. A woman in pearls assures you that her toothpaste is the secret behind her success, as her friends literally recoil in horror from anyone with ordinary breath. The camera lingers on the one person at the party who, gasp, forgot to use the right brand. It's social carnage, sanitized and set to cheerful music. Next up, a man in a suit practically sweats panic as he discovers his shirt has a visible ring around the collar. The announcer's voice booms. "Are you sure your detergent is doing enough?" The man's wife looks at him like she's considering moving to a different suburb. The threat is clear. Fail at laundry, and your marriage is next. Soap, hair tonic, floor wax. Each ad carries a thinly veiled warning. Your home, your body, and even your breath are potential minefields of shame. One wrong move, and you'll be the talk of the Tupperware party. The commercial's subtext is always the same. Everyone is watching, and they will know if you mess up. Deodorant ads are the most relentless. Attractive people dance, play tennis, and embrace in slow motion. But the message is deadly serious. Don't risk it, the narrator warns, as a cartoon cloud of stink hovers like a rain cloud over an unlucky man at a business meeting. You realize that in the 1950s, smelling human is basically a criminal offense. You must smell like a bar of soap and crushed optimism, nothing more, nothing less. Then comes the hair commercials. Women flip glossy locks while announcers gush about bounciness and shine. But there's a catch. If your hair is limp, frizzy, or remotely realistic, you might as well put on a dunce cap and stand in the corner. Men get their own version, with stern reminders to never let their hair look unprofessional. The unspoken rule: if you want a job, a wife, or the respect of your lawn, you'd better get that cowlick under control. Even food isn't safe. A cereal commercial features a child surrounded by adoring friends, grinning through a mouthful of sugary flakes. The message? Feed your family the wrong thing, and you're dooming them to a lonely life of unpopularity. Moms who care choose brand X, the narrator says, and you're left staring at your own breakfast with suspicion. Each ad ends with a jingle, catchy, bright, and impossible to forget. The melody burrows into your brain, planting seeds of anxiety. By the end of the break, you're convinced you need at least 3 new products to maintain basic human dignity. You glance around the living room and notice everyone is suddenly more aware of their breath, their hair, the faint whiff of shoe polish and soap. It's a room full of smiles hiding a silent fear. That someone, somewhere, can tell you've been using the wrong laundry detergent. As the show returns, you sink deeper into the couch, vowing to pick up a new deodorant next time you're at the store. Not because you need it, but because, after all those threats disguised as jingles, you're not sure you can risk being ordinary. In 1950s America, commercials don't just sell you stuff. They sell you the dream of being accepted and the nightmare of being found out. In the 1950s, being a man means providing and never expressing emotion except through lawn maintenance. Being a woman means running an entire household like a CEO while pretending it's effortless. Expectations sit on your shoulders like a heavy cardigan you can never remove. Everyone plays their role because if you don't, people will whisper. And whispering is basically violence in suburbia. For men, the script is simple, on the surface. You're the breadwinner, the provider, the guy who carries a briefcase to work even if it only contains a sandwich and a growing sense of dread. Your day is a series of meetings, commutes, and handshakes, all while wearing a suit so stiff it could double as armor. Showing affection or, heaven forbid, vulnerability is strictly forbidden, unless it involves patting someone on the back for mowing in straight lines. Emotion is expressed through projects, waxing the car, fixing a leaky faucet, or tending the perfect lawn. If you're frustrated, you work it out with a socket wrench and 3 hours of muttering in the garage. If you're happy, you fire up the barbecue and offer everyone a hot dog with the stoic pride of a man who's just survived combat. Fun is organized, controlled, and comes with a hefty side of responsibility. Women, meanwhile, are on a different stage, a 24/7 performance review. You're the boss of the house, except nobody will ever call you that. Your day starts before sunrise and doesn't end until everyone is in bed and the kitchen is restored to a state of pre-dinner perfection. Breakfast, laundry, dusting, beds made with military corners, and a smile that says, "I have this under control," even when you absolutely do not. Every room in the house is your territory, every meal a test, every wrinkle in a shirt a silent critique. Your schedule is a dizzying blend of cleaning, cooking, soothing, and anticipating the needs of others. You're a project manager, chef, therapist, and decorator, all at once, with no salary, no promotions, and 0 paid time off. The standards are high. Your house is supposed to look like a magazine cover at all times, even if the dog's shedding and the toddler is painting with mashed peas on the wall. If company drops by unannounced and you aren't ready, scandalous. Your cake is dry? Expect whispers at the next PTA meeting. Your children's faces are dirty at church? Congratulations, you are now the talk of the week. Children notice all of this. Boys learn quickly what's allowed. Girls are trained early in the fine art of hospitality, ironing, and smiling through disappointment. Toys, chores, and after-school activities are divided along invisible lines. If a boy wants to cook, or a girl dreams of becoming a scientist, the world quickly nudges them back into their appropriate lane. You get the sense that everyone is a little tired. Men sneak an extra beer in the garage. Women trade recipes and sympathy in whispers over coffee. Every so often, you hear rumors about someone, Mrs. Wilson down the block, who just couldn't handle it and vanished to visit family for a while. Nobody says it out loud, but everyone understands. The rewards for playing your part? Social approval, and the security of knowing you won't be the subject of hushed conversations at the grocery store. The cost? A quiet, constant pressure to never break character. It's a performance that never ends, with an audience that never sleeps. Yet beneath the surface, cracks appear. There's laughter in the kitchen, jokes whispered between mothers, dads secretly reading to their kids or sneaking into the kitchen for a midnight snack. The rules are clear, but so is the desire for something a little freer, a little more real. But for now, you shoulder the cardigan, pick up the briefcase, wipe the counter, and step back on stage. Because in the 1950s, you don't just play your gender role, you live it every minute of every day, while pretending you're not acting at all. If you work in an office, congratulations, you spend your day under buzzing lights, surrounded by cigarette smoke and men who say things like, "Let's circle back," before that phrase was even invented. Paper piles up like snowdrifts. Coffee tastes like regret. Your boss calls you sport. And deep down, you start wondering if your entire life is just a slow march toward a pension and a heart attack. The day begins with the ritual commute. You squeeze into your suit, pack your lunch in a brown paper bag, and merge into traffic behind 100 other chrome boats headed for the same grey destination. The office building towers ahead, all glass and steel and promises. As you walk in, the lobby is filled with the echo of shoes on polished tile and the sharp scent of floor wax. Everyone is pretending to look busy, reading memos, shuffling papers, perfecting their "I have important business" walk. You take your place at your desk, a small rectangle in a sea of rectangles, surrounded by low partitions that don't so much provide privacy as make you feel like a hamster in a very judgmental maze. The overhead lights are always fluorescent, always flickering. The hum is a constant reminder that your dreams should be quieter. The air is thick with smoke. Everyone smokes. Your boss, your colleagues, probably even the ficus in the corner. Ashtrays overflow. The windows are sealed shut, trapping the aroma of burnt coffee and stale ambition. If you don't smoke, you're considered either suspicious or ahead of your time, neither of which is good for your career. Paperwork is your constant companion. Forms, reports, letters, memos, all of them demanding signatures, stamps, or corrections. The filing cabinet is a black hole. Once something enters, it is rarely seen again. You spend a quarter of your day searching for documents, another quarter pretending to understand them, and the rest hoping nobody asks too many questions. Meetings are scheduled with alarming regularity, often about other meetings. You sit around a table with men in identical ties and try to look interested as someone draws a flowchart on the chalkboard. Every idea is greeted with polite nods and absolutely no intention of actual change. The only thing that circulates faster than rumors is the endless stream of action items. Coffee is the lifeblood of the office, but it always tastes like it was brewed by someone with a personal grudge against happiness. You drink it anyway, one bitter sip at a time, because it's better than facing your inbox stone-cold sober. If you're lucky, someone brings in donuts, a fleeting moment of joy that is devoured before the smell can even fade. Your boss is a character out of a sitcom, always smiling, always slightly menacing. He calls you champ or sport, pats you on the back a little too hard, and tells the same story about his fishing trip every Friday. He wants results, but mostly he wants you to look busy. Looking busy is, in fact, the unofficial mission statement of the entire company. Lunch is a sad affair. Sandwiches eaten at your desk or in the communal break room, where the refrigerator is filled with unclaimed yogurt and at least one science experiment in a Tupperware. There's small talk about the weather, the big game, and, inevitably, the rising cost of living. Someone always tries to sell you something. Insurance, vacation plans. Maybe the idea that this job is actually not so bad. As the afternoon drags on, you count the minutes until 5 o'clock. The clock moves with deliberate cruelty, refusing to budge until you've triple-checked your time card and finished that one last memo that nobody will ever read. When quitting time finally arrives, you file out with the others, worn down but still standing, already bracing yourself for another round tomorrow. The office is a world of endless paperwork, polite competition, and dreams filed under someday. But for now, you straighten your tie, grab your coat, and head for the door, hoping tomorrow's coffee is slightly less bitter and the lights a little less bright. In the 1950s, everyone smokes. Doctors smoke, teachers smoke, pregnant women smoke. There's probably a dog somewhere smoking. Cigarettes aren't just normal, they're recommended. They're glamorous. They're your emotional support stick. The air is thick with it, and you can't escape. If you don't smoke, people assume you're either sick or suspiciously modern. You wake up, and the first thing you see, before sunlight, before cereal, before the distant hum of the neighbor's mower, is a pack of cigarettes on the kitchen table. The matches are right there, printed with the logo of the local diner or hardware store, a gentle reminder that you can and should light up anywhere, anytime. You watch your father spark up while reading the morning paper, and your mother takes a drag between flipping pancakes. The breakfast cigarette is just a normal part of a balanced meal. Heading to work or school, the story doesn't change. Your teacher stands at the front of the classroom, chalk in one hand, cigarette in the other, making the blackboard cloudier than the plot of an avant-garde French film. In the doctor's office, a glass ashtray sits beside the stethoscope. The doctor offers you advice on health while blowing smoke rings across the exam room. Even hospital lobbies feature vending machines packed with Lucky Strikes, Camels or Chesterfields, trusted by doctors. As the ads insist, every adult you know has a favorite brand. Cigarettes come in pastel packs and elegant slim cases, advertised by movie stars with million-dollar smiles. The act of smoking is everywhere. On TV, in magazines, in the glossy posters at the bus stop. You want to be sophisticated? Flick your ash with flair and squint at the horizon. You want to look tough? Light up with one hand while revving your car engine. At the office, cigarettes are currency. Sharing a smoke is how you network, how you make friends, how you kill time while pretending to ponder the fate of the quarterly report. There's a smoky haze drifting through every meeting. Ashtrays overflow on every desk. The air conditioning does its best, but mostly just swirls the smoke around until you can taste it on your tongue. For teenagers, cigarettes are the forbidden fruit. The fastest way to look cool, or at least rebellious, is to sneak out behind the bleachers and pass around a crumpled pack. Parents might disapprove in theory, but the culture doesn't back them up. Even if you're caught, the punishment is often a warning, not genuine shock. Be careful. Don't let your mother see, your dad says. Taking a drag from his own cigarette. Public places aren't any better. Movie theaters, restaurants, bowling alleys. Every indoor space is clouded with the scent of burning tobacco. You know it's a good dinner party if the centerpiece is an ornate silver ashtray. And someone's already told a story about quitting right before lighting another. When someone sneezes, it's not a cold, it's the result of second-hand smoke, and nobody questions it. If you don't smoke, people worry. Maybe you're ill, or worse, trying to make a statement. There's a quiet pressure to join in, to fit in, to not be the only person at the lunch counter not reaching for a lighter. The only place you can escape the smoke is nowhere, actually. Not unless you lock yourself in the bathroom, and even there, someone's probably left a pack on the tank. By bedtime, your hair, your clothes, and even your dreams are lightly seasoned with the day's haze. It's the unofficial scent of the decade, equal parts glamour, habit, and denial. The idea that cigarettes could be bad for you, that's a problem for the distant future. For now, you inhale deeply, exhale a perfect smoke ring, and let the clouds settle. In the 1950s, breathing clean air is just something you read about in children's books. Everyone smokes, and nobody's worried. Except maybe your dog, who's just bummed you never let him pick the brand. Cocktail parties are where adults go to pretend they're thriving. You hold a drink. You laugh politely. You compliment someone's curtains like your life depends on it. The men talk about business. The women talk about casserole recipes and existential dread disguised as jokes. Everyone drinks too much, but very politely, because even intoxication must be tasteful. The invitation arrives on cream-colored stationery, addressed to you and guest, with a subtle flourish that suggests you'd better RSVP or face social exile. You iron your best shirt or smooth your best dress, practicing your delighted to be here smile in the mirror until your cheeks ache. Even before you step out the door, you know, this isn't just a gathering. It's a social performance review. You walk into a living room filled with low, golden lamplight and the sound of ice clinking in glasses. There's a coat pile on the guest bed that could smother a Labrador. The hostess, perfect hair never straying from its place, sweeps by with a tray of olives and the kind of energy usually reserved for emergency rooms. The air smells of perfume, aftershave, and something being burned in the kitchen by someone too tipsy to care. You're handed a drink. If you're a man, it's probably a scotch or a highball. If you're a woman, a Tom Collins or a whiskey sour, maybe something with a festive cherry. The glass is chilled, your hands are slightly clammy, and you immediately look for a place to stand where you won't be caught in the direct line of small talk fire. The evening unfolds with the precision of a well-oiled social machine. The men gather by the mantel, discussing the stock market, the rising cost of gasoline, and whether or not the Dodgers have a shot this year. The conversation never quite escapes the gravitational pull of business, except for a few half-hearted jokes about golf and lawnmowers. Each punchline is greeted with a round of polite laughter and the clink of ice. The women circle the coffee table, voices low and warm, exchanging recipes for Jell-O salad and strategies for surviving Little League season. Beneath the surface, existential dread simmers. There are coded jokes about the impossibility of keeping white curtains white and the secret hope that someone else's meatloaf will finally flop. Laughter is both a release and a signal, yes, we're all just holding it together. You make your way through the crowd, nodding, smiling, and searching for safe conversational ground. You compliment someone's wallpaper, someone else's new sofa. You congratulate the host on his recent promotion, even though you're not entirely sure what he does. In the background, the hi-fi plays just loud enough to fill the silences, but not so loud that anyone can escape into the music. After a couple of drinks, cheeks get rosier and the laughter grows louder. Stories are told and retold. War stories, college stories, the legend of that one neighbor who once brought a fruitcake in July. A brave soul suggests charades, but is mercifully ignored. Someone starts a debate about whether television is rotting children's brains, and everyone weighs in, careful not to reveal too much passion or disagreement. The snacks are a testament to mid-century ingenuity. Cheese balls, deviled eggs, toothpick, speared meat cubes, and canapes that defy logic and, sometimes, gravity. You nibble at each offering, never quite sure whether you're actually hungry or just looking for something to do with your hands. As the evening winds down, the laughter takes on a slightly desperate edge. People begin eyeing the clock, calculating how soon they can leave without offending the host. Polite goodbyes are exchanged, along with promises to have you over soon. Promises that may or may not survive past the morning. You stumble home, just a little tipsy, a little relieved, and still thinking about those curtains you complimented. Cocktail parties in the 1950s are a test of social stamina, a showcase for politeness, and, if you're lucky, a rare, sparkling moment of real connection in a world obsessed with keeping up appearances. Even during fun, there's always a shadow. The Cold War is like background static. You feel it constantly. Bomb drills, propaganda, suspicion. The fear doesn't scream. It hums quietly beneath your life, like a refrigerator. You go bowling while imagining nuclear fallout. You host a barbecue while wondering if your neighbor is secretly a spy. It's relaxing in a deeply unhealthy way. You wake up each morning to headlines about distant places and weapons that can flatten cities. The newspaper is never just news. It's a collection of daily reminders that the world could, theoretically, end before you finish your coffee. At breakfast, you might overhear your parents talking in low voices about the situation in Berlin, their tone as tense as the mashed potatoes at dinner. At school, the Cold War follows you into the classroom. Duck and cover drills are as routine as spelling tests. The teacher calmly instructs everyone to slide under their desks, arms over heads, as if a piece of wood is enough to stop an atomic blast. You do it because that's what's expected, but deep down, you're not sure if anyone really believes it'll help. Still, there's a strange comfort in ritual, like if you keep practicing, maybe the bomb will politely wait for you to finish reciting the alphabet. Everywhere you go, there's talk of the Reds and commies. Movie theaters show films about spies, sabotage, and the enemy lurking just out of sight. The hero is always an American, square-jawed and clean-cut, and the villain has a suspicious accent. The line between entertainment and anxiety blurs, until you're not sure if you're rooting for the hero or just hoping the movie doesn't end in total annihilation. The government gets in on the act too. Leaflets about fallout shelters and what to do in case of nuclear attack appear in your mailbox. Civil defense sirens are tested once a month, a sound you learn to ignore but never quite forget. Even at the neighborhood barbecue, there's a sense that everyone is sizing each other up. That new guy on the corner with the funny accent, he could be a spy, or worse, he could have opinions about the lawn. The radio plays a mix of cheerful jingles and dire warnings. Protect your home. Build a fallout shelter today. The ads between the songs sound a lot like threats, just set to a peppy tune. It's possible to buy canned water and emergency biscuits, which look suspiciously like dog treats but are meant to keep your family alive for at least 3 days. Or until help arrives, whichever comes first. Meanwhile, suspicion seeps into daily life. You watch your friends, your neighbors, even your relatives a little more closely. The PTA meeting isn't just about bake sales anymore. It's about community vigilance. Everyone knows someone who knows something. Gossip and paranoia mingle like gin and tonic at a cocktail party. Yet, in the strangest way, you get used to it. You learn to laugh at the drills, joke about ducking and covering during recess, and roll your eyes when another documentary about surviving the bomb interrupts your favorite TV show. It becomes normal to plan your birthday party and your escape route in the same breath. The Cold War is everywhere and nowhere, ever present, always lurking, the soundtrack to your entire life. And somehow, you carry on. You go bowling, you grill burgers, you sneak out to the drive-in, all while living with a hum of dread you can never quite shake. It's relaxing, in a deeply unhealthy way. But that's 1950s America for you. Living with one eye on the present and one ear tuned to the possibility of sudden world-ending change, while somehow, against all odds, still finding ways to have a little fun. Children are expected to behave like miniature adults. Parents discipline with firmness, because psychology hasn't fully entered the chat yet. Love is there, but it's expressed through structure and rules. You're taught to say, "Yes, ma'am," go outside, and never question authority, unless you want the ultimate punishment, being labeled difficult. You wake up to the sound of your parents already halfway through their morning routines. Dad in a starched shirt. Mom orchestrating the breakfast assembly line with the precision of a NASA engineer. You know better than to dawdle. Punctuality is the unwritten commandment. Hurry up is both a request and a warning. In the 1950s, parenting is a performance, and you're expected to know your role by heart. There are clear lines between grown-ups and kids. You call adults sir or ma'am without rolling your eyes, because sarcasm is a foreign language and backtalk is an act of war. If you're lucky, your parents express affection with a ruffle of your hair, a pat on the back, or, occasionally, the promise of ice cream, always after you've earned it. Discipline isn't just about the occasional scolding, it's a comprehensive lifestyle. Chores are handed out early and performed with military seriousness. Make your bed, tidy your room, feed the dog, take out the trash. There are charts, there are checklists, and there is always the threat of no television if you slip up. Timeouts? Not invented yet. Instead, you get the famous "wait until your father gets home," a phrase that could stretch out a single mistake into a full day of anxious anticipation. Punishments are swift and public. A raised eyebrow at the dinner table, a pointed cough, or, if you really misbehave, a lecture about kids these days. No child wants to hear about how their parents walked 6 miles in the snow just to get to school barefoot uphill both ways. Yet, somehow, that story is told nightly as a warning and a standard. Despite the iron discipline, optimism reigns supreme. Parents believe in the future. They save for college, they buy encyclopedias, they post your report card on the refrigerator for all to see. They talk about progress and possibility, even if their way of showing love feels like preparing you for a future job as a junior executive. The rules are clear. Respect your elders. Eat what's put in front of you. Never slam the door. And for the love of all that is holy, don't embarrass the family in public. Outdoor play is strongly encouraged. You're expected to leave the house after breakfast and not return until dinner, unless you need first aid. And even then, you're expected to fix most injuries with a garden hose and some dirt. Parental love is constant but camouflaged. You know you're cared for by the way your mum makes your favorite sandwich, or the way your dad pretends not to notice your midnight snack runs. Hugs and I love yous happen, but so do lectures about saving money and warnings about the company you keep. Bedtime arrives with its own rituals. You brush your teeth under supervision. Pajamas are non-negotiable. You're tucked in with a story or a firm goodnight. And you drift off knowing that tomorrow, the schedule will repeat itself. The standards are high, but the boundaries are clear. And within them, there's safety. What you don't realize, as a child, is that your parents are just as anxious as you are. They're trying to keep up with the neighbors, trying to raise good citizens, trying not to be the subject of whispered judgment at church or the PTA. Their optimism is real, but so is their mild terror, because raising a child in the 1950s is an unpaid full-time job, heavy with expectations and light on therapy. And yet, somehow, it works. You grow up sturdy, polite, and just rebellious enough to survive the coming decade. Parenting in the 1950s. A delicate dance of discipline, optimism, and the quiet hope that you'll turn out all right. The department store feels like paradise. Bright lights, endless products. A future you can buy in installments. You walk through aisles of appliances that promise to make life easier, faster, better, and you believe them. Because in the 1950s, the American dream isn't something you earn. It's something you purchase with coupons. As you enter through the automatic doors, an actual miracle, as if the building itself is welcoming you to worship, you're hit with a wave of cool, manufactured air and a medley of scents. Perfume samples, new rubber, waxed linoleum, and the distant aroma of popcorn from the snack bar. Fluorescent lights hum overhead, reflecting off rows of gleaming chrome and pastel plastics. The floor plan is a wonderland, stretching farther than you thought possible, filled with more choices than a person should ever reasonably face before noon. You grab a shopping cart, marveling at its smooth rolling wheels. In the 1950s, even the carts are newfangled, shiny metal, not a single squeaky one in the herd. The store is a labyrinth of hope, aisles packed with boxed cake mixes that promise effortless desserts, gadgets for every conceivable kitchen emergency, and futuristic blenders that look like they could take you to the moon if you add enough pineapple. The appliances have their own section, practically a showroom. There's a refrigerator so large you could hide a car in it. There's a washing machine that vibrates with confidence, next to a dryer that claims to banish humidity from your life forever. Everything has a smiling woman on the packaging, eyes twinkling with relief, and a slogan promising that with just one more purchase, your life will finally be under control. You wander past racks of dresses and slacks, all in the latest styles as decreed by fashion magazines and local gossip. The mannequins look like they're mid-conversation, poised, immaculate, and almost definitely judging your shoe choices. If you want to fit in at church or your next cocktail party, you need to dress like you shop here. Bonus points for buying matching gloves and a hat. As you move through the store, you pass the toy aisle, a riot of color and excitement. Children stare wide-eyed at the latest model trains, tin robots, and hula hoops. The sales staff, dressed in sharp uniforms, are never more than a few feet away, ready to help, flatter, and occasionally apply gentle pressure. Are you sure you don't need a second toaster, just in case? There's music overhead, not quite loud enough to drown out the constant announcements about specials in housewares. Attention shoppers, today only, 20% off all electric fans. It's almost spiritual. This relentless pursuit of improvement. This belief that happiness can be wheeled out to your car and loaded into the trunk. Every purchase feels significant. You collect green stamps or coupons, symbols of thrift and virtue. The checkout counter is a grand finale, with the cashier ringing up each item like a tiny bell of affirmation. You pay in cash or maybe sign up for the new installment plan, another miracle of the age. The receipt is long and hopeful, proof you're investing in your future, one coffee percolator at a time. Leaving the store, bags in hand, you feel lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because for a moment, you believe you've found the solution to life's daily troubles. Heavier because now you own more stuff to store, dust, and explain to your spouse. In the 1950s, shopping isn't just an errand, it's a ritual of faith. You believe in better living through consumption, and for a little while beneath the glow of the neon sign, you really do feel like paradise is something you can take home in a box. Christmas and Thanksgiving in the 1950s are large-scale operations. Decorations are perfect. Food is abundant. Smiles are mandatory. Family gatherings come with warmth, joy, and the quiet tension of people trapped in the same room trying not to explode. The holidays are beautiful, yes, but also a reminder that fun is a job and you are clocked in. You feel it in the air before you see it. The crisp scent of pine needles, the distant notes of Bing Crosby, and the electric buzz of anticipation mingling with mild dread. Decorations start going up the day after Halloween, or sooner if you're the competitive type. The outside of your house glows with lights, so bright the neighbors can't sleep. The inside looks like a department store exploded. Tinsel on every surface, wreaths on every door, and a tree so symmetrical you suspect foul play. Shopping for gifts is an Olympic sport. You prowl the aisles of glittering department stores, armed with coupons, wish lists, and the quiet panic of forgetting someone important. Everyone is hunting for the must-have toy, the train set, the doll, the hula hoop, and you're one wrong move away from a newsworthy scuffle in the toy aisle. The checkout lines are long, tempers are short, and your wallet is lighter with every step. When the big day arrives, it's showtime. You're up before dawn, stuffing the turkey or placing the Christmas ham in the oven, all while sipping your third cup of coffee. The kitchen becomes a war zone. Pots bubbling, pies cooling, and a last-minute search for the good gravy boat. The table is set with your finest china, the stuff that's lived in a box since last year, and you silently hope nobody notices the one chipped plate. Family starts to arrive. Some you love, some you tolerate, and some you remember only because they remind you every year of that embarrassing thing you did at age 6. Everyone hugs at the door, smiles for the camera, and makes polite comments about the weather. There's joy, but also tension. The unspoken agreement that certain topics, politics, who forgot the cranberry sauce, Aunt Mabel's new boyfriend, are off limits. There's always someone who's had too much eggnog, and someone else who makes it their duty to point that out. Kids race through the house, hopped up on sugar cookies and a rare parental amnesty on noise. The dog eats half a fruitcake and disappears under the couch for the rest of the evening. You keep the music on and the laughter flowing, using both as insulation against the occasional awkward silence. Meals are served with great ceremony. The turkey is carved with the seriousness of a medical procedure, and compliments fly thick and fast. Best stuffing yet. How do you get your gravy so smooth? Nobody mentions the burnt rolls or the mystery casserole that's been re-gifted more than once. Seconds are encouraged, thirds are applauded, and there's an unspoken challenge to see who can eat the most without undoing a single button. Gift giving is its own brand of performance. The wrapping paper is torn, the bows are admired, and everyone does their best. I love it. Face. Regardless of whether they've received a sweater, a tie, or a slightly alarming homemade ornament, photographs are snapped, capturing the illusion of perfect happiness for future reference or future blackmail. And as the day winds down, and you're left with a mountain of dishes and an empty Jell-O mold, you feel both relief and a strange longing. Holidays in the 1950s are beautiful. Yes, magical even. But they're also exhausting, rituals of joy, with a side of quiet performance anxiety. Fun is a job, and you're expected to do it with a smile. But as you fall into bed, the lights twinkling outside and the leftovers cooling in the fridge, you realize that for all the effort, it's worth it. Even if the magic is a little manufactured, it's still magic, and tomorrow you get to go back to being normal, whatever that means. Dating is formal, structured, and absolutely loaded with unspoken rules. You don't just hang out, you go steady. You wear your nicest clothes. You hold hands like it's a legal contract. And everything is both romantic and terrifying, because one wrong move could damage your reputation, which in the 1950s is basically a second skeleton inside your body. You start with the basics, the phone call. It isn't a quick text or DM. It's a nerve-wracking, house-wide event. You pick up the heavy rotary phone, hoping nobody else is listening in on the other line, except you know they definitely are. If you're the caller, your hands sweat as you ask, "Would you like to go to the dance?" If you're the recipient, your entire family is listening, ready to offer opinions the moment you hang up. Next comes the date, a ritual involving layers of preparation and anxiety. If you're a guy, you show up at the girl's house in slacks, a pressed shirt, and a tie that screams, "I'm respectable." If you're a girl, you put on a dress your mother approved, matching gloves, and maybe a cardigan just in case. Shoes are shined, hair is tamed. You carry a sense of occasion in every step, even if you're just headed to the soda shop. The parents greet you at the door. There are questions, lots of smiling, and at least one awkward joke from Dad about shotguns and curfew. The mother sizes you up with the skill of a customs officer. You're reminded that the front porch light will be on, and there will be no lingering goodnights unless you want it discussed at Sunday church. You head out, maybe to a movie, maybe to a dance, maybe to the local diner for a milkshake with 2 straws. The conversation is polite and careful, sprinkled with laughter, and the occasional terrifying silence. Compliments are formal, flirting is subtle, and everything is filtered through the knowledge that news of your date will travel faster than electricity. Public displays of affection are strictly limited. A shy handhold is a major event, and a peck on the cheek could set off a neighborhood investigation. You're always aware of chaperones lurking in the background, actual adults at the dance, or the waitress at the diner with her sharp eyes and sharper tongue. The line between romantic and scandalous is razor thin, and nobody wants to slip. If things go well, you go steady. This is not a casual arrangement. It comes with gifts. His class ring on a chain around her neck, or an ID bracelet that's practically a marriage proposal. Once you're going steady, there are expectations, weekly phone calls, regular dates, and the ongoing negotiation of what's allowed and what absolutely isn't. Breaking up is public news, and everyone wants to know whose fault it was. Every social gathering, school dances, church picnics, even bowling night, is an opportunity to show you're a respectable couple. The right amount of affection, the right amount of distance, and always the right kind of conversation. If rumors start, it's crisis mode. Your parents get involved. The principal gets involved. In extreme cases, your neighbor's dog probably knows before you do. Yet beneath all the rules and fear of gossip, there's genuine sweetness. Passing notes in class, the thrill of a secret glance, the heart-pounding moment when your hands touch for the first time. You dream about a future together, even if you don't know what that future is. You return home before curfew, cheeks flushed, heart racing, and already rehearsing how to describe the night in the least embarrassing way possible to your family. You hang up your jacket, place your shoes by the door, and hope tomorrow's hallway whispers are kind. Because in the 1950s, dating isn't just about romance. It's about navigating a minefield of expectations, preserving your reputation, and learning how to fall in love with the whole world watching. And somehow, despite all the chaos, you manage to make it a little magical. Finally, night arrives. You slip into bed, exhausted from smiling, behaving, and surviving social expectations. The house is quiet except for the hum of appliances and the distant sound of someone's television still playing. You stare at the ceiling and wonder if everyone else feels this tired too, or if you're the only one struggling inside the perfect picture. Then you remember, nobody talks about struggling, so you close your eyes and let the dream of tomorrow begin again. You pull the covers up to your chin, pajamas buttoned tight, the smell of starch and laundry soap still clinging to the fabric. Your bed is made just so, hospital corners, tucked sheets, the kind of precision that promises safety, or at least approval from a passing inspector. In the 1950s, even sleep comes with instructions. Beds must be tidy, nightstands clear, teeth brushed, and worries hidden away where nobody can see. There's a clock on the nightstand ticking steadily, the sound strangely soothing in its insistence that time will move forward, ready or not. The day's noises fade, replaced by the white noise of the refrigerator cycling, the distant rumble of the neighbor's car, and a far-off dog barking as if to remind you that imperfection still exists, somewhere out there in the dark. You replay the day in your mind, wondering if you remembered to say thank you, if your shirt stayed tucked, if your smile looked real enough to convince the world that you belong. Did you do enough? Did you fit in? These are the questions that linger after the lights go out, the ones that chase each other through the quiet of the room. Your parents move through the hallway, their voices muffled as they discuss bills, chores, tomorrow's responsibilities. The pressure doesn't disappear at night. It just changes shape, shifting from to-do lists to the low, anxious hum of "what will people think?" You hear your father cough, your mother sigh, and you realize you're not the only one hoping for a little peace, a little permission to let your guard down. You think about your friends, tucked in down the street, probably staring at their own ceilings, playing the same nightly game of what if and maybe tomorrow. You wonder if they're as tired as you, tired of playing the part, tired of pretending to have it all together, tired of chasing a version of happiness that always seems just out of reach. You close your eyes, letting the weight of the day settle in your limbs. The perfection the world demands feels heavy, but the darkness is gentle. A soft space where nobody can see if your hair is mussed or your socks don't match. You let your thoughts drift. Maybe tomorrow you'll wake up braver. Maybe tomorrow the world will feel a little softer. Maybe tomorrow being ordinary will be enough. As you drift toward sleep, the house itself seems to sigh. The walls relax. The dishes in the sink wait patiently for morning. Even the radio falls silent, leaving only the faint heartbeat of the quiet suburban night. You are, for a moment, just a person in a bed, letting go of the performance, just being, and somewhere in that stillness you remember, nobody is perfect. Not really. Not the smiling neighbors, not the mothers with perfect meatloaf, not the fathers with shiny cars, not even you. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to breathe. You're allowed to hope for something more than just another perfect day. You close your eyes, letting sleep carry you away. Not to perfection, but to dreams where you can be yourself, unjudged, unmeasured, free. Tomorrow you'll wake up and do it all again. But tonight, you finally get to rest. Sunday morning arrives with the quiet force of tradition. You wake up and put on clothes that feel like they were designed specifically to stop human joy from escaping. Your shoes are polished, your hair is controlled, and your smile is preloaded like a canned ham. Church isn't optional. It's social proof that you are a respectable person who has never had a single sinful thought, even once. Not even about stealing a second slice of pie at a potluck. The building smells like perfume, old wood, and quiet judgment. And even though the sermon is soothing, the real performance is in the pews where everyone is casually scanning everyone else's outfits like they're shopping for moral weaknesses. You stumble into the bathroom and splash cold water on your face, half awake and fully aware that your outfit must pass the unspoken but ruthless standards of the congregation. For boys, it's a stiff shirt, a tie knotted by a parent, and pants that itch in all the wrong places. For girls, it's a starched dress, bobby socks, and hair that's been curled into submission. Everyone smells faintly of mothballs, and whatever cologne was on sale last Christmas. The ride to church is a parade of tension disguised as cheerful banter. Your parents remind you to sit up straight, behave, and, under no circumstances, say anything about what happened to the casserole at last week's dinner. The car radio plays softly, drowned out by last-minute reminders about posture, pleasantries, and the mortal sin of fidgeting. You arrive early, because in the 1950s, being fashionably late to church is only fashionable if you want to be the subject of prayer requests and pointed glances. The parking lot is a slow-motion ballet of station wagons and sedans, each family emerging in near unison, locking doors with a sense of finality. You can almost hear the whispered checklists: hat on straight, tie centered, dress smoothed, smile engaged. Stepping into the building, you're enveloped by the scent of hymnals, ancient wooden pews, and a hint of someone's perfume that could stun a horse. The ushers greet everyone with that practiced handshake, firm, friendly, and quietly assessing. You slip into your seat, arranged by family unit, where your every move will be monitored by a sea of eyes trained for generations in the art of polite surveillance. The service itself is a blend of comfort and endurance. The choir sings, voices rising to the rafters, and you sneak glances at the ceiling, counting beams and dust motes. Anything to distract from the growing numbness in your feet. The sermon is delivered in a soothing tone, full of references to community and temptation, while half the congregation is secretly thinking about the pot roast waiting at home. You do your best to sit still, legs together, hands folded, face arranged in an expression of gentle contemplation. This is not a time for creativity. You're judged on your ability to look angelic and not accidentally drop the hymn book. A sneeze is a minor scandal. A yawn, unforgivable. During the offering, coins and bills are placed in the plate with the solemnity of a royal ceremony. The organ plays, children fidget, and adults exchange coded glances. Did you see who only put in a quarter? Did you notice who forgot their gloves? It's a social Olympics. And the judging is silent, but merciless. After the service, everyone gathers in the entryway, practicing the delicate art of small talk. Compliments about hats and dresses fly faster than prayer requests. The real action happens in these conversations. Alliances are formed, invitations to next week's potluck are subtly dangled, and the entire town's gossip is exchanged under the guise of fellowship. Finally, you file out, blinking in the sunlight, liberated but already dreading next Sunday. You did your duty, maintained your reputation, and maybe, just maybe, snagged a second slice of pie at the coffee hour. In the 1950s, church is more than worship. It's community theatre, social audit, and fashion show all rolled into one. And above all, it's a place where fun wears a tie, and you'd better make sure it's straight. At some point in the year, the town gathers for a parade, because nothing screams fun like standing in the sun watching vehicles go by slowly. You take your spot on the curb, armed with a small flag and a deep sense of obligation. The marching band arrives first, slightly out of sync, followed by veterans, local businesses, and a float sponsored by the hardware store. Kids wave like tiny politicians. Adults clap at the exact right moments. The whole thing has the energy of a national ritual, like you're celebrating freedom, but also quietly proving you're not suspicious. And by the end, you're sunburned, dehydrated, and somehow emotionally moved by a man throwing candy from a truck. Preparation and arrival. You know the parade is coming weeks in advance. The entire town does. It's in the newspaper, announced at church, and whispered over backyard fences. Families plan their day around it, and the good curb spots are staked out early. Blankets and lawn chairs forming a patchwork border down Main Street. Your parents pack sunscreen, snacks, and strict warnings not to run into the street, even if you spot a rogue piece of candy rocketing toward a storm drain. The main event, the parade itself, is an all-hands-on-deck affair. You hear the distant thump of drums and the slightly heroic, slightly off-key blast of the high school marching band before you see them. They round the corner in uniforms that have survived decades of awkward growth spurts. Each trumpet player is focused, each drummer marching as if the fate of democracy depends on it. Veterans ride by in classic convertibles, waving with the dignified exhaustion of people who have survived actual battles and now must survive waving for 30 minutes in a moving car. The crowd claps, flags wave. The float from the local hardware store goes by, festooned with hammers, a couple of bored kids, and a banner reminding you to shop local. You nod solemnly, as if you've never purchased a wrench anywhere else. Community theatre in motion. Parades are where local businesses, scout troops, and the odd dance school get their moment in the sun, literally. There are fire trucks with sirens blaring, beauty queens sitting stiff-backed on hay bales, and Cub Scouts trying valiantly to keep their lines straight while also sneaking extra candy from their pockets. Even the town's mayor rides by, tossing candy with a look that says, "Vote for me again, please." I'm so tired. Spectator Olympics. Standing on the curb, you become a master of multitasking, waving your flag, cheering at the right moments, fanning yourself with a program, and trying not to lose your place in the shade. The sun bakes your shoulders, but complaining is forbidden. Sunburn is a badge of honor. Somewhere behind you, the local radio station is blaring patriotic tunes, and the smell of grilled hot dogs and cheap popcorn drifts on the breeze. The unspoken competition. Every family compares parade technique. Who brought the best cooler? Who caught the most candy? Who remembered extra chairs? The social stakes are surprisingly high. Being underprepared is a minor scandal that will be remembered at block parties for years to come. The emotional finale. Just when you think you can't stand another slow-moving float, the final act appears. The local Shriners in tiny cars, zipping around like they're auditioning for a circus. Children shriek, adults laugh, and the parade dissolves into a moving, sun-drenched after-party as families gather up their belongings, sticky with spilled soda and pride. By the end of the day, your arms are full of melting candy, your face is a patchwork of sun and shadow, and your heart, despite your best efforts, is a little bit lighter. The parade has done its work. You've shown up, you've cheered. You've survived another display of community, unity, and sun exposure. And as you shuffle home, part of you already looks forward to next year's parade, where you'll once again prove your love of country, your tolerance for heat, and your ability to clap on cue. Patriotism with a side of sunburn. Now it's bowling night, the official recreational activity of people who can't admit they're stressed. You walk into the bowling alley and the smell hits you instantly. Cigarette smoke, fried food, and the faint chemical scent of shoes that have seen horrors. The balls are heavy and slightly greasy, like they've absorbed decades of human frustration. The lane glows under fluorescent lights, like an interrogation room. Everyone is laughing, joking, high-fiving, but deep down, each person is one missed pin away from a quiet meltdown. Because bowling in the 1950s isn't just a game. It's therapy, except the therapist is a teenager behind the counter, and your emotional breakthrough comes in the form of a turkey. You scan the sea of lanes, taking in the riot of colors and movement, families, leagues, co-workers and friends, all united in their desire to knock things over and pretend it's just for fun. The ball return rattles like a haunted factory, spitting out the next round of weapons of mass distraction. Shoes are rented, traded, and tried on with a ritual that's both sacred and a little unsanitary. If you're lucky, you get a pair that doesn't squish or squeak. If you're really lucky, you avoid thinking too much about who wore them last. The ritual begins. You select your ball from the rack, a process involving quiet math, superstition, and the eternal debate of heavy for power. Light for aim? The chosen orb is always slightly too greasy. The finger holes never quite the right size. It doesn't matter. The important thing is the first roll. You wind up, swing back, and let it fly down the lane. All your worries temporarily transferred to a 15-pound sphere spinning toward an indifferent cluster of pins. The group dynamic is equal parts camaraderie and competition. Everyone cheers the strikes and mutters consolations for the gutter balls, but nobody forgets who's winning. Laughter is a little louder than normal. Jokes are a little sharper. And there's an underlying current of tension, like everyone's pretending not to care, while quietly planning their victory dance. Every so often, someone throws a perfect strike, and for a moment, they're royalty. Snacks are essential to the bowling experience. The menu is a 1950s masterpiece of sodium and saturated fat. Nachos, chili dogs, popcorn, and French fries that could outlive most small pets. You eat with abandon, ignoring the growing pile of grease-stained napkins on the sticky table. The soda is always flat, the ice melts instantly, and the ketchup comes in tiny, unopenable packets. Calories don't count on bowling night. Stress, after all, needs to be absorbed somehow. The soundtrack is a jumble of rock and roll, pin crashes, and the occasional celebratory shout. Somewhere, a league bowler in custom shoes demonstrates technique that borders on witchcraft, sending pins flying in all directions. You pretend not to watch, but everyone secretly wants to borrow his skill for just one frame. As the night goes on, rivalries heat up. Maybe you're neck and neck with your sibling, or maybe dad is taking the game way too seriously. His friendly competition voice suspiciously close to his disappointed at the office voice. Each missed pin becomes a small tragedy, each spare a triumph. The lane is a stage for all the emotions you've been politely suppressing since Monday. By the last frame, spirits are high or low, depending on your score. Shoes are returned, balls thud back onto the racks, and everyone makes promises to do this again soon. You head for the exit, your hands slick with sweat, your stomach full of questionable cheese, and your mind just a little lighter than when you walked in. In the 1950s, bowling night is more than just a game. It's the great equalizer, the weekly therapy session, and the one place you're allowed, no, expected, to let a little frustration fly. You might not solve your problems, but you'll definitely have something to talk about at next week's barbecue. And if nothing else, you've earned the right to call yourself a champion of controlled rage, at least until next Thursday. You take a deep breath and enter the PTA meeting, which is basically a battleground disguised as a community gathering. The chairs are lined up, the coffee is weak, and the snacks are aggressively homemade. Everyone is smiling in that polite suburban way that says, "Hello, I'm thrilled to see you, and I will destroy you if you criticize my child's handwriting." The meeting starts with cheerful updates about bake sales and school supplies, but beneath every sentence is a hidden competition. Whose family is the most respectable, whose child is the most promising, and who is secretly failing at motherhood or fatherhood. The entire room is calm, yet somehow feels like a courtroom where the verdict is always not quite good enough. You scan the room and realize that, for all the talk of community, the PTA is a high-stakes game of social chess. The mothers and fathers are dressed for the part, slacks pressed, blouses crisp, hair set in styles that would survive a hurricane. Everyone brings a plate of something homemade. Brownies, lemon bars, a questionable casserole, presented with the solemnity of an Olympic medal. It's understood. Store-bought snacks are an admission of defeat. You take your seat, clutching your notepad like a shield. The principal calls the meeting to order, his smile just a little too wide. The agenda is as packed as the dessert table. Fundraisers, field trips, new playground equipment, and the eternal struggle to keep the school copier from bursting into flames. There are motions, seconds, and the kind of parliamentary procedure that makes you long for the days when your biggest worry was spelling homework. As the meeting rolls on, you notice the subtle glances exchanged around the room. Mrs. Cooper is whispering with Mrs. Reynolds. Are they plotting a coup over the bake sale, or just comparing notes on carpool? Mr. Adams, who volunteers for everything, is already lobbying for the Best Dad trophy, while Mrs. Harper's helpful suggestions have the sharp edge of a freshly sharpened pencil. The real contest, of course, is over whose child is shining the brightest this month. Someone casually mentions that Timmy got an A+ on his math test, which is met with polite applause and the quiet gnashing of teeth. Another parent beams about their daughter's performance in the school play, while you silently hope nobody asks about your child's science project, which, if you're honest, was mostly glue and hope. Debate breaks out over the color of the new playground mulch. One camp is passionately pro-red, while the other fears it will stain the children's clothes and reputations. The discussion grows more heated until someone offers to form a mulch subcommittee. You agree instantly, grateful for any distraction that doesn't involve comparing lunchbox creativity. There's always that moment when fundraising comes up. Should the school sell candy bars, raffle off baskets, or make the kids run laps for pledges? Suggestions fly. And for every idea, there's a counter-argument and a cautionary tale. No one wants to repeat the great taffy disaster of '53. As the coffee cools and the homemade brownies dwindle, the meeting winds down with announcements and reminders. Please don't park in the fire lane. Volunteer sign-up sheets are at the back. Let's all support our wonderful teachers. Everyone nods in agreement, smiles wide, pens ready to sign up. At least for the tasks that won't get you roped into anything too demanding. You gather your things and leave. Still smiling, still nodding, wondering if you've done enough to pass this month's unspoken inspection. The verdict is always not quite good enough. But you'll be back next time, armed with a fresh batch of cookies and the quiet hope that, maybe, you'll win the secret competition nobody admits they're playing. Because in the 1950s, the PTA meeting isn't just about helping the school. It's about holding your place in the social order, one homemade brownie at a time. And so, after a full day of mandatory smiles, perfectly trimmed lawns, and fun that required a clean shirt and emotional restraint, you finally get to drift back into your own bed. Because in the 1950s, even rest feels like something you have to earn. You earn it by mowing the grass at the proper height, by laughing politely at the barbecue while someone serves chicken that may or may not be done, by clapping at the parade like your patriotism is being graded, by listening to rock and roll at a volume that won't get you labeled as troubled, by surviving the diner booths, the PTA meetings, the office fluorescent lights, and the constant fear that your neighbors might notice you exist slightly wrong. And honestly, it's kind of impressive. Because for all the weirdness, the pressure, and the quietly simmering tension under the surface of everything, people still found ways to build lives. They fell in love at drive-ins. They made friends in bowling alleys full of smoke and rage. They raised kids in a world that expected perfection. Even while the Cold War hummed like background static, they laughed, they danced, they made meatloaf, they kept going. So tonight, as you sink into your bed with your modern comforts, maybe whisper a quiet thank you to the people who came before you, the ones who survived the 1950s version of fun, where every party had rules, every smile was rehearsed, and every lawn was basically a public confession. And as your eyes get heavier, just remember, history may be strange, stressful, and full of suspicious casseroles, but it's also proof that people are stubborn, hopeful, and kind of ridiculous. Good night.